I'd like to call the Senate Health and Welfare Committee to order at this time. Our secretary will take a silent roll for us. We would like to welcome our new page. Her name is Emma Medrano. Emma, I'm going to have you go up there and tell us a little bit about yourself for the committee.
Okay. There we go.
Okay.
Well, I heard about the PAGE program through one of our friends, and I thought it was a really awesome opportunity because ever since I was like 7, I really loved like politics for some reason, and everyone thought I was like really weird, but I've always just loved it. So yeah, this is kind of like a dream come true. It's super exciting for me, and I can't wait to see what I can learn from you guys. But, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So tell us where you're from. Where are you from?
I'm from Eagle, Idaho.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're excited to have you in our committee.
Thank you.
Okay, committee, we have approval of some minutes from February 5th, 2025. Senator Bjerke.
Madam Chair, for motion,
A motion's in order.
I move to accept the minutes of February 5th, 2025.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes from February 5th, 2025. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next on our agenda, we have RS 32371, and it's found in your packet. And I'm just going to stay right here because this is the resolution that we put forward to address the actions that we took on our administrative rules that we have to start reporting back to the body on our administrative rules. So with that, we'll have to introduce this and have it printed. So I would entertain a motion to do that. Senator Shippey?
Madam Chair, I move that we send RS 32371 to print.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that to send RS 32371 to print. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Thank you. Oh, okay. We will send that to the Jude and Rules Committee to be printed for us. Okay. All right, committee. Next on our agenda, we have Senate Bill 1087. Senator Ricks. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and the time is yours.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Doug Ricks, Senator from District 34. I appreciate the opportunity to be here in your committee today. So today I bring you Senate Bill 1087. This is a similar legislation to a bill that I brought last year in this committee, although I see a lot of new faces. But we actually passed a more expanded version of this last year in the Senate, and it got stalled on the other side. And so this bill that I'm bringing today, it's regarding medical records and getting copies of your own medical records. It's I guess a scaled down version of what we passed last year. And this particular bill deals strictly with medical records and getting a copy of those strictly for Social Security disability purposes. Each of us, when we get paychecks, you actually pay into the Social Security system for retirement, and as part of that is actually disability insurance. If you look at the full term of that and look on your pay stub, you'll actually see that. And so, we do know that there's a number of people that become disabled for various reasons, and that's what this program is for. And in order for them to I guess, actually get on disability insurance, they have to go through an application process. It can take anywhere from normally 1.5 to 2 years. It's a long process. And then during that time, there's no money that they receive in. And in order to apply for that, they also have to have a copy of their medical records when they get to the point where they go before the judge. And what this legislation does is allows folks like that that are applying for Social Security benefits one copy of their medical records for free. This is something that I've worked with it's actually been 3 or 4 years that I've been trying to get this passed in a more expanded version, not this particular one, but this allows, I have worked with our different hospitals and different stakeholders on this, and we, I believe, come to a consensus on this that everybody seems to be okay with this. But in most cases, if you were to go to your local doctor, they would provide a copy of the records anyway to you. Kind of where we've ran into some trouble on this and where there's some costs involved has dealt primarily with hospitals. A lot of times our hospitals in the state will contract with third-party aggregators that actually collect the medical records and fulfill these requests. And in a lot of cases, some of those have been charging $1.24 per page. And oftentimes there could be 500 or 1,000 pages in a person's medical records. That adds up pretty fast, and normally those are also provided in a PDF format. So this particular legislation does specify that the case would be on line 25 in a electronic format if available, and usually they are. If not, then a paper copy may be provided. It also provides a carve out on line 27, section 4 there. If it's a smaller doctor's office that maybe doesn't have the resources, it's actually exempt. However, if it's under 50 employees, but most of the time, our small doctor's office will provide these anyway. But with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Committee, any questions? Senator Kaiser?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Lent, just for clarification, so there's already federal law that requires patient care facilities to provide a patient's medical records to them at no cost. But what you're saying is third-party service providers contracted with the patient care facility is charging the patient and or their power of attorney a fee to obtain that. Is that right?
Senator
Yes.
Ricks.
Yes, Senator Van Orden, Senator Kaiser. Yes, the third-party aggregators, again, more typically associated with the hospital system, they do charge. In some cases, I've got copies of bills I could show you, but average around $1.24 per page.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up?
No, Madam Chair, that's great.
Yeah, and Madam Chair, and maybe to expand on that, so the federal guidelines typically, and I think it's a gray area to where they contract that out, but the hospital themselves, if they kept the records in-house and did it on their own, they are required under federal law to do it in a reasonable cost.
All right. Senator Zeiderfeld.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Ricks. So on line 21, it says support a qualified claim. I was just wondering if you would be willing to amend and put documented before the authorized or support of qualified claims or appeal. Line 22, sorry.
Senator Ricks.
Yes, Senator Chairman Van Orden and Senator Zeiderfeld. Yes, that is one thing that I will be asking for is to, it does say a qualified claim. You could probably argue, well, maybe that is, but by putting the word, I will ask for this to send to the 14th order in order to put that one word documented, which somebody applying and asking for this, if they'll submit some sort of a record that would indicate that they're applying for Social Security disability. Yes, I'm willing.
Senator Shippey.
Madam Chair, for a motion?
We do have somebody that has signed up to testify. So are there any more questions from the committee at this point? Seeing none. Okay, we have Kate Haas. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Kate Haas with Kestrel West. Today, I am here on behalf of the Association of Health Information Outsourcing Services, otherwise known as a HEOS. It's a trade association for the companies that are doing this work. They are the ones who the hospitals contract with. So when you request your records from a hospital, they're not just all in one neat, tidy spot. They're scattered across a number of systems, and so they contract with these companies to gather the records, redact them if there's anything that's necessary, and then provide them for you. For those of you who have been on the committee for a while, you know that I have in the past, on behalf of this client, opposed the bill. I'm very happy to say that's not why I'm here today. Senator Ricks has made some very significant changes to the bill, and we really appreciate those changes. They have allowed my client to change their position. We did talk quite a bit about including the word documented, so we really appreciate his ability or his willingness to do that as well. From the perspective of the folks who are generating these documents and with the hospitals, we see that as doing two things. One, it makes it very clear to the records providers, particularly the third-party companies, hey, this is a free one, don't charge anyone for it, particularly when an attorney is requesting it, because that's where you get into it, is when an attorney requests it, it's not automatically free. So this makes it very, very clear if there's a certain Social Security form or if there is a court hearing notice or hearing order attached to it, this is a free one. Don't charge them. The flip side of that coin is that it also protects it from being abused by anyone who might be inclined to do that. So it's a safeguard for both sides. We appreciate Senator Ricks being willing to go to the 14th and make that small technical change, and are happy to stand in support with that. I'd ask you to send it to the amending order and then give it a due pass, and I'd stand for questions.
Any questions? Senator Shippey?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for a motion.
Okay.
Or do we not have any more? I apologize.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that we send Senate Bill 1087 to the 14th order of business for possible amendments.
It's been moved and seconded to send Senate Bill 1087 to the 14th order for possible amendments. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Senator Ricks. Okay, I've got to have Okay, next on our agenda, we have Senate Bill 1036. And Senator Shippey, I'm going to take a privilege right now to, we have a lot of people set up to testify that are here. And I know this has been broadcast or everybody's been told that this is a informational hearing only, and that we will take testimony along with our presentation today. And I just wanted to thank everybody for coming. I think it's really important that the information on this bill is made public. And but we will, excuse me. Okay. For people that are testifying, we will have a 2-minute limit. So everybody gets 2 minutes. We do have a timer. We'll get through as many as we can when we finish the main presentations today. I will be having one, a pro testifier and then a con testifier. So we'll be going back and forth in that order, how people signed up when we get to that place. The committee won't be taking a vote on this today. And the sponsor of the legislation has said that he feels like there are some changes that need to be made to this, that it's not quite ready to go for a vote at this time. So that's why, but we wanted to give him an informational hearing so that the information could be put out there. So having said that, Senator Shippey, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be able to bring this legislation. Before you is Senate Bill 1036. This legislation is titled the Doug Cameron Act. It ensures a moratorium on the administration by any route or modality of any gene therapy product for any infectious disease indication. And so this legislation is here for one reason and one reason only. This was not a brainchild of myself. As many of you know, this is not my area of expertise, but a constituent of mine brought this to me. She is a registered nurse, and she cares very, very much about injured Idahoans who have been injured by the COVID vaccination. And this good constituent is here today, and she has many connections with some really qualified experts in various disciplines, and through the efforts of many, we were able to draft this legislation. And so what we're going to do is we have a presentation. We do have some experts scheduled to be testifying online. And what I'm going to do is turn now my time over to them to start their testimony, their expert witness on this subject. And then I will, I guess, come back after all the presentations, all the testimonies, and to finish on my end. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Sign up online.
Madam Chair, this is Lori Demaray, and she is the one kind of behind the technical scheduling everybody. So,
Can I? Madam Chair, how
Ms.
may I-
Demery, did you have them sign up online so that we could grab them?
Madam Chair, yes, ma'am, they're all right there. Do you want me to say the names so maybe you can, it might be able
The
to?
ones that we have.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You could just go right down that list. Thank you so much. They normally have me do that, and so. Do I come up there? Do I? Okay.
We don't have any of these names on our list.
Hello, Dr. McCullough. Yes, we are in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee meeting in Idaho, and technical difficulties, but they're having me put you up to the mic with our phone, okay? And, yep. Hold on. Yes, ma'am. Dr. McCullough, can you please give your name and title?
Yes, I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm a practicing internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas. And
Oh, can you shut off your screen, Dr. McCullough?
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, we should be okay now. I can see you, but you can't see me. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. I'm in practice as an internist and cardiologist in Dallas, Texas, and I've been called to Washington several times to testify in the Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives on important matters in the COVID-19 pandemic. What we've learned is that the messenger RNA gene technology transfer platform used for Moderna and Pfizer, unfortunately, is not safe. And it's been linked to many, many problems after COVID-19 vaccination. It's driven now 17 medical organizations to call for the COVID vaccines to be pulled off the market. President Trump now has dropped the mandates in schools, restored the military, if they've declined the vaccine, and there's a global recognition that the COVID-19 vaccines were a mistake, and I think largely because they were messenger RNA for Pfizer, Moderna. Now Moderna's vaccine for the Norwalk virus has been paused because of neurologic side effects, as Epstein-Barr virus because of more myocarditis or heart damage. And so we have a situation where it looks like jurisdiction by jurisdiction, state by state, there'll need to be votes like there will be one here in this group to go ahead and ban these or halt them for public use, because some people may not ever know about this. The majority of Americans know they're not safe and they're not taking these shots, but some people don't know. Last year, our CDC recorded 823 more deaths due to the vaccines. People took them and they didn't know. So it's of public health importance for this group to understand that safety comes first. They should be halted from clinical use. And then anybody who takes any one of these messenger RNA products or any animal that is going to take one of these products should be done in a research protocol. They're not ready for public use. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. McCullough.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Let me check real quick. Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Yes, ma'am, I do. I have one more. It is the pediatrician, Dr. Renata Moon. And do the same thing, Madam Chair. Yes, ma'am. Hi, Dr. Renata Moon. We're having technical difficulties. This is Laura DeMarais, and the gracious Madam Chair has allowed us to still continue with testimony. Can I put you on the phone? Okay, and you state your name and your title. Thank you so much, Dr. Moon, and I'm going to turn on this speaker now.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Idaho legislators who are here in attendance today. My name is Dr. Rennie Moon. I'm a practicing pediatric hospitalist and pediatrician with over 25 years of clinical practice experience. I also have strong ties to Idaho. I attended school in Idaho from first grade through high school and still have very strong connections there. I have a disclaimer. My words are my own. I'm not here representing any entity, for any prior employer or any other entity. Look, children had a statistical zero risk of a fatality from the original COVID-19 infection. There was no emergency for our nation's children. Yet these COVID-19 shots right now are sitting under emergency measures on our CDC traditional shot schedule. They're being recommended for children as young as 6 months and up. We clearly have documented injuries from these shots. We know of heart injuries, neurological injuries, and even deaths from the shot, fatalities from the shots. Those are just the short-term risks. What are the long-term risks? Why is this being given to our nation's children? It's all risk with absolutely no documented benefit for preventing the statistical zero risk of a fatality from this infection, because the death rate was so low. Our kids were spared from the COVID-19 pandemic, but they have not been spared from these shots. Doctors who spoke out, many of us, have been persecuted just simply for asking the obvious question of why is this being given to children? As a practicing pediatrician, I have never been anti-vax. That is not something that's ever been attached to my name. I've always trusted my government. I do not trust what is happening with these shots because I've seen it firsthand. I'm going to close by giving you just several examples. M is a family friend in his early 20s who developed inflammation of his heart, myocarditis, within days of receiving this shot from our military. He's been out on disability now for several years. His heart was so damaged by this. Kay is a young lady, a 23-year-old, who had 3 heart attacks and now has a pacemaker in place following the second dose of COVID-19 shot. She was completely healthy when she joined our military. V is a young man in his early 30s who died 16 days after receiving an injection of this shot. His aorta exploded. And yes, the pathology was done. And yes, this was all from the COVID-19 shot. And Ernesto Jr., a 16-year-old who had no symptoms after his COVID shot was given, but died a week later while playing basketball on the basketball court with an enlarged heart. I literally lose sleep at night wondering how many children have been harmed by these products. What we're suffering from in America right now is this idea that it's, quote, not my job. Please, everyone listening, and especially to our legislators and everyone on this committee, protecting our nation's children, protecting the children of the state of Idaho is very much your job and very much in your lane. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renata Moon.
Madam Chair, are we going to have to call all the experts that we had lined up, or are you able to get them online there? Okay.
Madam Chair, may I ask my colleagues if they could hold on for the IT to work just for the 3 with, or the few with the slides? I have 1, 2, 3. I have 4 more. Yes, ma'am.
Brandon, Senator Shippey, we could go ahead and start down through the testimony until they get here. And then I'm hoping they get here soon. So if you'd like to do that, would you like to speak to it some more, or would you like to have us just start down through the testimony?
Madam Chair, I think it would be a good idea to just start down through the testimony, and then maybe when we get the technical difficulties fixed, we can bring the experts back online and finish that presentation.
Okay.
Would you like me to stay over here?
It would be up to you. If you'd like to finish up with your comments, then we'll take testimony. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Demery.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I'm okay to just start taking testimony. I can come back.
Okay. That'd be great. Okay, we're going to go down through here. Get my timer up. Okay, first on our testimony, we have Xavier Figueroa. When you come to the microphone, please identify yourself for the record. If you're representing somebody, please let us know.
Of course.
And then we'll give the time would be yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Javier Figueroa. I'm a PhD in neurobiology and toxicology. I'm representing myself as a resident here in Idaho. When I heard of Senator Shippey's bill that would create a moratorium on gene therapy-based vaccines, I was very surprised, but in a good way. For the past 4 years, I've been living with the knowledge that what has been sold to the world as, quote, safe and effective vaccine is anything but safe and effective. As you have heard and will hear, there is a large and growing number of experts in science, medicine, and law that are highlighting the many dangers, legal repercussions, and budgetary effects of the continuation of the use of these medical products on our citizens here in Idaho. The pressure and pushback that Senate leadership and this committee has experienced on this bill does not surprise me. Moratoriums of any kind must not be entered into lightly and must be entered in with great deliberation. Fear and uncertainty on the repercussions of a moratorium must be weighed against the benefits and the drawbacks. Billions, if not trillions, of dollars are at stake with the mRNA platforms. Applications in agriculture are well underway, highlighting the potential bonanza for investors. At the same time, these gene therapies, which they are, as defined by FDA regulations, patent filings, and scientific definitions, carry many known dangers as well as unknown repercussions. The use of this technology in medicine and our food must be addressed, and we're now exposing future generations to technology that can harm our most precious inheritance and our long-term health. The mRNA products were released under an emergency use authorization, and the pretext for its use and expansion has followed with it. The application of these technologies previously were limited to a very narrow field of medicine. The vast majority of the clinical trials failed to deliver an effective treatment using this technology. In the next year, we will see a massive amount of previously hidden and overlooked data that will reveal the massive damage and cost from the use of this technology. We can get ahead of the damage now or be forced to act and account for inaction a year from now. Thank you very much, and thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you. Next, we have Bonnie Schuster. Do I have Bonnie Schuster in person? Okay. David Peterman is on video. Let me see if I can get him.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Peterman, yes. Please identify yourself for the record, and the time is yours.
Okay, I lost about 10 seconds there, but I'm David Peterman. I'm a pediatrician. I've practiced in Boise, Idaho for 42 years. I'm also was previously the CEO of Primary Health Medical Group. I certainly have not traveled to Washington, D.C. or around the country with any kind of political agenda. I'm really just the doctor who takes care of your children, your neighbor's kids, your nieces, your grandkids. And I simply want to tell you about two patients who unfortunately got COVID before there was vaccine. The first is a teenage girl who was a star soccer player, really one of the best in the state. Following her infection from COVID, the respiratory problems were so severe, she had to give up soccer, and to this day is no longer playing soccer. The second is an adolescent young man, normal young kid with really great aptitude for math. He currently now has a pacemaker in his chest, which he will have for the rest of his life. Following COVID, he developed complete heart block, and the only treatment for that right now is a pacemaker. The point being is, once COVID vaccines were available, the parents of these two children were adamant that they wanted their other children vaccinated for obvious reasons. And therefore, in my mind, it's unconscionable not to allow parents to make the decisions for themselves, for their children. And I certainly understand, and in my practice, where there are parents who don't want certain therapies or whatnot, but nevertheless, it is absolutely essential that parents have the opportunity to communicate with their doctors, their pediatricians, and at least have the opportunity to choose what therapy they want for their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on our list, we have Shani McLaren. She's on the line.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Shani McLaren. I'm a private citizen in District 9, Weiser. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. I support Senate Bill 1036 because of my background in healthcare education. I worked at a hospital teaching in clinical and community settings for 23 years. Most of my employment was spent teaching prenatal and antenatal classes. My responsibility as an educator is to provide non-biased information so that parents can make informed decisions about their healthcare and give informed consent for treatment. The research and evidence-based information I used to teach was highly respected in the medical community and available to us staff members in the medical library. When I taught prenatal classes during the COVID pandemic, COVID vaccines were available to staff at my hospital, as well as the community, with the exception of pregnant women, infants, and children. I explained to students in my classes that vaccine testing typically takes several years to determine safety. And while we waited for a vaccine to become available for this vulnerable population group, I was perplexed as to why alternative treatments along with antibody testing weren't being recommended by the CDC. Since then, COVID vaccine manufacturers produce a product currently recognized as gene therapy in the medical community because of its components and its mode of action. I sought out a consensus among physicians, research abstracts, and my coworkers regarding the safety of this gene therapy for use in pregnant women, and was unable to. Research is showing fetal and prenatal toxicity and should be studied in light of the adverse events. One of the contributors to the mRNA technology stated this gene therapy should not be given to children. I'm in favor of a moratorium. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Jessica Evans-Wall. Welcome to the committee.
Thanks so much, Madam
Time
Chair.
is yours. Please identify yourself for the record.
Hello, Madam Chair and committee members. Thank you for letting me be here. My name is Jessica Evans-Wall. I am a practicing emergency physician here in Boise, Idaho. I'm speaking for myself today. I would like to speak against Bill 1036. Due to the sparsity of medical training opportunity here in the state of Idaho, I did have to leave the state in order to obtain medical training. I went to medical school at Tufts University in Boston and did residency training in emergency medicine in the state of New Mexico. I always had the goal of coming back here to serve my community in Idaho, and I'm a proud frontline worker here in Boise in the emergency department. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I worked in New Mexico. People were getting sick and dying before the vaccines are available. While this was happening, I held patients' hands as they died on the ventilators. I cried with families as they lost loved ones, sometimes numerous loved ones in a single day, and I could offer nothing more to these previously healthy patients that are dying from this virus. One day, I pronounced 11 people dead from COVID-19. 2 of those were a mother and a son who had been fighting for their lives across the hall for weeks. During this time, the coroner's office knew me by my first name. That's how sad it was at the time. Then the vaccines became available, and we finally had some hope in the medical community. People were still getting sick, but we had so many fewer people who were dying. It was such a relief to not have a 30-year-old young mother of 4 dying on a ventilator because we had another option. If only she had had the vaccine available, she might still be here with her children. This pandemic was not a one-off event. We will have another viral pandemic. I urge you against this bill. mRNA vaccines have the potential to save lives. The technology has been researched since the 1970s and allows researchers to develop vaccines efficiently.
Thank you, Mrs. Evans. Ms. Evans, the time is up.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Okay. We have a list of
Of course. Thank you so much for your
testifiers.
time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Heidi Smith. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself, and the time is yours.
Chairman Van Orden, good members of this committee. I'm Heidi Smith from Parma in District 9. I'm a precinct committeeman in Canyon County, and I'm representing myself. Minimally tested mRNA products were unleashed on the public in the guise of vaccines in mid-2021, following a pandemic in which efficacious treatments were suppressed to create a need for an emergency use authorization. Other presenters more qualified than I have testified and will be testifying when you get your tech back up on the horrendous medical fallout from these products. I'd like to focus instead on the massive cost resulting from this widespread damage. I sent you a couple of emails with some information, including VAERS data on deaths. VAERS typically shows less than 10% of actual incidents, meaning that deaths are at least in 6 figures or more from this mRNA product. Damage, however, is even more widespread and millions are affected. Effects range from extreme disability, such as that experienced by Idaho rancher Doug Cameron, for who the bill is named, and on down to lesser but still life-altering problems. I don't know the exact figure for Mr. Cameron's medical expenses, but I would hazard a guess that they run into 8 figures and possibly 9. Am I correct?
2 million.
Okay, over $1 million. Okay, so 2 million. So at least 7 figures. Okay. It doesn't take too many people like Mr. Cameron before the financial impact of medical treatment surpasses $1 billion, and given millions of people adversely affected in some form or another, the burden on our medical system quickly reaches several $1 billion, possibly surpassing the $1 trillion mark. This cost is paid by insurance, Medicare, Medicaid, and ultimately by the citizens. In addition to the compelling evidence of death and damage from these mRNA products and the incalculable human cost, I'd like you to also consider the unconscionable financial burden these products have placed on our nation and on our state. Our FDA, which normally withdraws products from the market with only a fraction of this loss of life, has failed to act. 9 states, including Idaho,
Thank
have
you.
proposed legislation.
Mrs. Smith,
I urge you to support this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us. Okay, that was 4. Next, I have Sky Blue. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Please identify yourself for the record. Time is yours.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to testify. My name's Dr. Sky Blue, physician here in Idaho, speaking on for myself. My views and opinions are my own and not necessarily any employers or affiliated institutions. And I'm not here to lecture you on science or change anybody's personal medical beliefs. Instead, I just want to share my direct experience taking care of Idaho patients to provide you context in your consideration. I practiced medicine in Boise, Idaho since 1997, and before that, University of Utah, where I was on faculty, infectious diseases and geriatrics. While my background includes years of training, research, decades of clinical practice in clinical virology, epidemiology, and general infectious diseases, what I've learned most is humility. The more we learn, the more we realize how much we don't know. Each day in my practice, I pray that my experience and my knowledge is there to help somebody who needs it. And every patient, regardless of their beliefs, education, and choices, deserves that respect and empathy. And it's especially been true over the last 5 years when we're discussing vaccines. In these conversations, I meet patients where they are. When somebody declines a recommended vaccine, I offer to answer questions and share what I know and what I don't know, if they're interested. And if they're not, let them know I'm here to discuss it further when they are. But that choice never affects the care for that patient. This bill would remove that freedom entirely. While it's named after one person's tragedy, I stand here also representing the tens of thousands of Idahoans who benefited from the mRNA vaccines. But we must be humble enough to acknowledge that none of us, not me with my decades of clinical experience, nor this legislature, has perfect knowledge. Medicine works best when doctors and patients can make decisions together. And I just ask you, are you certain, truly certain, that this is the best course for you? And I stand, unopposed to this bill. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have Joseph Gish. Hello, Mr. Gish. Please identify yourself from the record, and then the time is yours. And we do have a time limit today.
Okay. My name is Joseph Gish. I'm a newly elected county commissioner in Nez Perce County, Idaho. Although I'm here for myself, I appreciate the chance to testify. In December of 2021, I sent information to the director of the Department of Health and Welfare on a province in India called Uttar Pradesh, who wiped out their COVID-19 with the distribution of ivermectin health packets. Now, the director chose not to distribute those health packets in Idaho, and I liken this decision to the dog that didn't bark, meaning you can't prove a negative, so we'll never know the names and the faces of the people that might have been saved had these health packets been distributed. Now, this committee has a similar decision to make, except there's a critical difference. This is going to be the dog that did bark, because at this point, there's a milestone, and we will know the names and the faces of the victims of this mRNA injection going forward. The bill is named after Doug Cameron, but really, the bill is for the future victims of the mRNA injection. Now, those of us who have studied the damage from these injections believe that the injections will be taken off the market sometime in the future. So I urge this committee to let this bill go forward. I think our legislators in Boise have a duty to vote on this bill and limit the damage to the state of Idaho. I have a wife, and she took the vaccine because she was a first responder, and now she has debilitating fatigue, the Epstein-Barr syndrome that Dr. McCullough mentioned earlier, and has had to retire. So I have firsthand knowledge of this. So please, I urge you, let the bill go forward, let the legislators vote on it, and I appreciate the time. Thank you for letting me testify.
Thank you for being with us today. Okay, next we have Okay, next we have Paul Rollick in person. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Paul Rollig. I live in West Boise in District 15. I urge you to vote no on this bill. It's simply not a logical solution to the problem. I learned a lot about logical and analytical thinking while earning my Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics. And I applied that training every day of my 40-year career in computer software and firmware development. This bill is based on a report from 2021 and the unfortunate story of Doug Cameron's extremely adverse reaction, apparently to his first COVID vaccination. And according to that story that was published by the Idaho Freedom Foundation in August 2021, there were 1,852 vaccine injuries reported in the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, on the CDC website. It's crucial to understand, however, that the VAERS website is totally raw, unfiltered data. As stated there, anyone can submit a report to VAERS. And just because there is a report in VAERS does not mean that a vaccine caused an adverse event. There can be and is some good data there. There can also be reports submitted by people based on hearsay or by those deliberately spreading disinformation. Millions of people around the world have received various COVID vaccines since they were introduced, and millions of lives have been saved and various and serious infections avoided. It's not logical to forbid everyone in Idaho from receiving this vaccine. Furthermore, such a moratorium infringes on Idahoans' medical freedom. Even the Idaho Freedom Foundation agrees with that. And I have a friend who died in April of 2020 from COVID. He was one of the first to fall. And my wife and I have had our COVID vaccines and boosters every time they have been available, and we're here to talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Rollig. Appreciate you being with us today. Thank you. Okay, next we have Laura Demery. And we are working on getting the presenters. I think you had to go back in and probably have them apply to get on. So we're working on it. So welcome to committee, and the time is yours.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and honorable legislators. I'm Laura Demeray from Washington County. I support S1036 with my own opinions. 34 in Idaho have died, 108 permanently disabled. The gene therapy vaccines do not prevent COVID, its transmission, nor hospitalization and death, but instead, with lipid nanoparticles, are distributed throughout the body, including the brain, eyes, heart, ovaries, testes, bone marrow, and to fetuses, leaving over 1,200 disorders in its wake, according to Pfizer document 5.3.6 that they wanted to withhold from the public for 75 years, and I do have a copy of that. There are 3,800 peer-reviewed studies. We keep them on React 19. I'm a volunteer there for free. And it shows harm to every aspect of the body. It is a tragedy that there were not publicized early home treatment, but there was already the McCullough protocol quite quickly, and it is a tragedy that so many people did die with COVID. However, many studies show, as for instance, look at the McCullough Foundation, that 85% of those could have been prevented with traditional early home treatment. Never in nursing have we ever told people who are sick to go home and not have some kind of applicable therapeutic. Sequential multi-drug therapy worked. This is not a free market product or choice when billions of taxpayer dollars were used to coerce, propagandize, and censor dissent. It was billions of dollars helped misinform and intimidate the public to take this product. That is a non-market-based advantage. There is no free choice because the public was not given informed consent, and it is still not given informed consent. I'm supporting this bill because something's wrong with the microphone, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can.
Okay.
And then if you could wrap up, we're getting some presenters online here, so I'd like one more testifier to go, and then we'll be able to get to them.
Okay. Then I'll just close up with, I am asking you all to interpose for us because the agencies did fail through every avenue, and I am a volunteer for a group that has 40,000 individuals who are severely disabled from this shot. That's just in the USA.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Okay, next we have David Pate online. Mr. Pate, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Please identify yourself, and then the time is yours. We have a timer of 2 minutes today.
Thank you. My name is Dr. David Pate. I'm a board-certified general internist, and most recently, I was president and CEO of St. Luke's Health System until I retired. I'm testifying on behalf of myself and in opposition to the bill. I just want to raise 3 points. The first is, of the testimony I've heard so far, it has pretty much been limited to the COVID mRNA vaccines. I do want to point out that this bill is far broader and would have many unintended consequences, I believe. I think it's confusing. The science isn't on it, and I urge this bill not to be enacted. Second, regardless of where people sit on the safety issue of these vaccines, the truth is that we are facing an increased risk of new novel organisms causing pandemics, and we are less prepared, and the steps we're taking will make us even less prepared. And if we have a wholesale moratorium on the vaccines for the next 10 years, it would impede and impair our response to that pandemic. Those viruses could have mortality rates far in excess of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and could disproportionately affect children. So finally, I do want to say health and healthcare is all about risk and benefit decisions. Every medication I have ever prescribed to a patient came with a lengthy package insert in fine print of potential risks and benefits. But I explain to those to patients, and patients make their own decisions, and everybody's decision, their risk varies. So I trust patients to make their decisions. I ask you to trust Idahoans to make the right decision for their families, and of course, medical freedom demands it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. Okay, committee, we do have our presenters on now, so I'm going to click on them and have them come up online. Okay? All right. So first, we have Sasha Lachpova.
Hi.
Welcome to
Thank you.
committee.
Can you hear me?
Please identify yourself for the record, and then you can proceed, please.
Hi, my name is Sasha Latypova. Thank you for listening to me. I speak in support of S1036. My career for 25 years I spent in pharmaceutical research and development, working on hundreds of clinical trials, including for large companies like Pfizer, who were my key client and investor. I interacted with FDA on behalf of my clients in regulatory submissions. Doug Cameron was permanently disabled by a single shot from Janssen vaccine lot 1805020, manufactured in December 2020. This lot is associated with over 1,300 adverse events and 25 deaths, including one person in Idaho, 56-year-old male. This lot wasn't the most toxic. There are lots that generated 5,000 to 7,000 severe adverse events and hundreds of deaths per lot. In my 25-year career, even a fraction of these events would have resulted in a total product recall from market. This never happened. FDA never enforced any pharmaceutical law. They do not enforce pharmaceutical law in relation to EUA countermeasures and the public health emergency. This is federal law. These products are currently covered by PrEP Act declarations, which are still in place until the end of 2029. So the law is non-enforceable. People were not informed about it. There are no expected consumer safety protections, such as good manufacturing practice enforcement and marketing claims enforcement. Everyone who advertised these shots as nearly 100% safe and effective used these empty words without any legal meaning. Lack of good manufacturing practice enforcement for these shots means that no informed consent is possible or meaningful, because neither the healthcare providers nor the recipients have assurance about the purity, potency, and safety, nor about the content of the vials. And the content varies gigantic amounts from lot to lot. When taken to court for false claims of efficacy and safety, pharmaceutical companies, including Pfizer and others, have successfully used PrEP Act as a liability shield today, claiming that they've delivered what the government ordered: large-scale manufacturing demonstrations, meaning fraud by definition. Thank you very much, and please consider supporting this bill.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us today. I'm sorry it took so long to get on, but I'm glad you were able to get on with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next we have Nicholas Holcher.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
Well, can I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes, you may.
My name is Nicholas Holscher. I'm an epidemiologist at the McCullough Foundation, and I am in support of Senate Bill 1036. Abundant evidence supports immediate market withdrawal of COVID-19 vaccines. Widespread, more than 81,000 physicians, scientists, researchers, and concerned citizens, 240 elected government officials, 17 professional organizations, 2 state Republican parties, 17 Republican Party county committees, and 6 scientific studies from across the world have called for the market withdrawal of these vaccines. Along with VAERS, 12 studies demonstrate that mass COVID-19 vaccination has led to increased mortality. The total number of COVID-19 vaccine deaths worldwide may be greater than 17 million. 325 autopsies indicate a high likelihood of a causal link between COVID-19 vaccines and death. Lipid nanoparticles carrying modified mRNA travel to all organ systems, instructing them to become toxic full-length, pre-fusion stabilized spike protein factories. Product mRNA and resulting spike protein are found directly in affected tissues at autopsy. The total number of COVID-19 vaccine deaths reported to VAERS have far exceeded recall limits of past vaccine withdrawals by up to 375,000%. 6 studies have demonstrated that COVID-19 vaccinated individuals face a higher risk of infection compared to unvaccinated individuals. DNA contamination in COVID-19 vaccines reported across multiple manufacturers, vaccine platforms, and geographic regions far exceeds regulatory thresholds. Immediate removal of COVID-19 vaccines from the market is essential to prevent further loss of life and ensure the next steps for accountability are taken. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. We appreciate you. And sorry for the delay. That was a glitch in our IT system, but thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Welcome to
Hello,
committee.
my name is Dr. Christina Parks. I'm assuming I can be heard. I will now share my screen. What I want to discuss today is the science of why these COVID-19 vaccines really require at least 20 years of safety studies. And I want to explain what a gene therapy. Everyone says we need to have access to a vaccine. This isn't a discussion on whether we should have a vaccine or not, because there are non-gene therapy vaccines on the market for COVID. A traditional vaccine, you inject a viral protein, such as a spike protein, are part of it. The immune system recognizes it and teaches the body to make antibodies. This is a very different technology. What it does is it gets information, genetic information, either mRNA in terms of Pfizer or Moderna, or DNA in terms of J&J and AstraZeneca, directly into the cell, and then the cell becomes a manufacturing plant for the foreign viral protein. Because this is a foreign protein, the body is then going to attack the cells making that protein. The goals of gene therapy technology are to get the target genetic material into as many cells of interest as possible. This is because it used to be the idea to make a protein that the body is not making or is not making well. And now, instead of making a protein that's therapeutic, we are making a toxic foreign viral protein. So the goals, again, are to get the target genetic information into as many cells as possible, to have the mRNA for that gene expressed as long as possible, and to make as much of the target protein for as long as possible. Now, remember, the target protein is a toxic foreign viral spike protein that is known to cause all of the deleterious effects of COVID. So it's no surprise that many people are having adverse reactions. And what I really want to stress is that none of these activities are necessary for the efficacy of a vaccine. We have taken an experimental gene therapy and are using it for a vaccine, and it is very, very problematic because the known risk of gene therapy technologies are 1, cancer, 2, hyperinflammation, 3, chronic immune system dysregulation, which of course will feed cancer, and genomic integration, including genomic integration into the germline, which is the sex cells. Because of these very, very high risk, which may not manifest for many, many years, regulatory guidelines suggest that gene therapies require at a minimum 10 to 20 years of surveillance to pick up signals for cancer and autoimmunity. Careful screening for genomic integration, and careful screening for increased prevalence of blood disorders such as cancers like leukemia and lymphoma. So we really need for this technology to have full liability for the manufacturers and to have at least 10 to 20 years of studies on it so that we don't find out, say, that 80% of children who took this vaccine in 10 years get cancer. This is not about giving Idahoans a choice because there is no choice. Every product on the market should have full liability and should have full market testing. They called it a vaccine and then said because it's a vaccine under EUA, we don't have to do any of the normal testing that we would do for gene therapy. I believe that for Idahoans, you need to enact this moratorium and not let any product on the market that doesn't meet basic safety guidelines. Long-term 20-year safety studies and manufacturer liability must be a must for this product, who, as you can see, is not been proven safe for general use. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being with us today. I'm sorry it took so long to get you online, but thank you for being patient, and we appreciate your testimony with us today. Thank you. Okay, committee. I think that's all we have online right now, and we do have some more people to testify. So we'll keep working our way down this list. Senator Shippey. Who is it? We did have one more online, but he's not, he must have ran out of time, I'm assuming. So we did have a Mr. Thorpe. So thank you. Okay, let's start down our list again here. Next we have Mary Peterson. Can you hear us? Please
Yes, hi.
Please identify yourself for the record, and then we have a timer of 2 minutes, and the time is yours.
Okay. Sorry. My name is Lori Lee Peterson. I live in Preston, Idaho, and I support S1036. I have lost everything I've ever worked for my entire adult life. I used to think my home was my most valuable asset. I was wrong. It was my health. I bought my first home at age 23, promoted to the quality supervisor at age 25, one of the toughest positions in the plant. I believed in safety and quality over profit. Lives and reputations were on the line. Safety and quality do not exist in this country anymore. Our child's safety and their quality of life is on the line if we continue to use this gene therapy vaccine. My American dream was stolen the day I believed in the science, and I got the COVID mRNA Pfizer vaccine. The symptoms were not instant at first. They started off slow enough. I did not realize it was related to the vaccine. I went ahead and I got the second dose. The second dose did me in. I started off with chest pains and fatigue and struggled to work. I have since been diagnosed with myocarditis. I still suffer symptoms 3 years later. I've also been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, which I didn't have before. RA. I have neurological symptoms that still are come unanswered today. I produce spike protein at high levels 3 years after vaccination. I will not go through my symptoms as I only have 2 minutes. Laura has my complete letter that explains everything that I've been through over 3 years. I was continuously misdiagnosed, and everyone ignored the elephant in the room. They did not reach out to the CDC or FDA for help. None of the doctors that I seen filed a VAERS. I had to file a VAERS myself. Not just my own life has been affected, but my family's life as well. I am no longer the aunt, sister, mother, daughter, that I once was. I had to sell my house. I only owed $42,000 on. I now live in an RV in my parents' backyard in Preston, Idaho. My biological father spent half of his retirement savings paying for my mortgage for a year. I was promised I was going to get better by every doctor I seen. I never got better. I was denied my CICP claim because I did not file within a year.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have Kyle Smith. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
Kyle Smith, dear Chairman, committee. I was born and raised in District 24. My great-grandparents farmed the Snake River Plain. I'm here to speak about the reality of mRNA vaccines, not some hypothetical what-if discussed behind closed doors by people that have not felt the brunt of what it's like to actually zip bodies into bags. As a trauma nurse during the heat of the COVID pandemic, I lived day in and day out of an N95 mask. I held the hands of patients struggling to breathe as fear crept into their eyes as life slipped away from them, their otherwise healthy lungs failing them. As I would strip my protective gear away at the end of the day, filled with death, my mind would race through the past 12 hours without food and water. Did my mask slip? Did a cough make it past my protective goggles? Young, healthy people like me, dead. Simply from going to a barbecue, and here I was rushing into the flames day after day to try to help them. Was I going to get that same disease? Is there nothing besides this fabric mask and plastic goggles that could help keep me, my family, my community safer? This bill is sponsored in the name of Doug Cameron, who received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And Mr. Cameron's story is a tragedy, but it is also rare. And what was not rare were tragedies every single day due to the disease that these mRNA vaccines prevent. And what's more, the vaccine he received doesn't even fall into the definition of this bill. It is not an mRNA vaccine. It is a vector vaccine. There's a difference. This and J&J vaccine, I believe, is no longer used in the United States. As an Idahoan, a U.S. citizen, a nurse, a father of a 1-year-old that is still developing his immunity, I would like to ask the committee to think what it would be like if their loved one was dying on a ventilator in the hospital. And I said, well, we had this other option to possibly prevent this, but our politicians decided that they didn't want Idahoans to have that choice. By passing this bill, you would pull a tool from our toolbox that has proven to save millions of citizens' lives and make hundreds of thousands of healthcare workers safe.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today. Okay, next we have Liz Wilner. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, and then we have a 2-minute time limit today, and the time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Liz Wilner. I am a resident of Idaho and founder of OpenVeris.com. I speak in support of this bill. The FDA and CDC have abdicated their roles as protectors of health when it comes to the COVID vaccine. It is incumbent upon the state of Idaho to protect its citizens from an experimental drug that has shown almost no efficacy despite the belief of the medical community. The experiment has ended unsuccessfully, and it is time to own that and correct what we can. VAERS was created in 1990 by the FDA and CDC to receive reports of adverse events that may be associated with vaccines. The primary purpose for maintaining the database is to serve as an early warning or signaling system for adverse events not detected during pre-market testing and clinical trials. It is illegal to submit a false VAERS report. VAERS has been sending huge signals out since December of 2020. 770 signals found by the CDC were uncovered by journalist Zachary Sieber via FOIA. These adverse events included death, miscarriage, myocarditis, and more. But VAERS signals have been ignored by the CDC and FDA for 4 years. In Idaho, in 2020, there were 117 reports of severe adverse events in VAERS. In 2021, there were 1,438, a 12-time increase. In 34 years, nearly half of all VAERS death reports for Idaho are in the context of COVID. It is generally acknowledged that due to the fact that the reporting system is voluntary, VAERS numbers are underreported. Total VAERS reports for Idaho could be more than 12% of the vaccinated population. Additionally, we have 28 military reports for Idaho alone in VAERS. Out of 28, 25% are cardiac related. There are 2 cases of shingles, 1 new onset autoimmune syndrome, ulcerative colitis, 1 case of tumor, and 1 case of unilateral total hearing loss. VAERS ID 206-8763, a 29-year-old military air traffic controller, developed pericarditis immediately after the vaccine was administered. He has experienced chest pain for months and is on heart medication. What if he had had a heart attack while on the job? When they choose to inject themselves, it often has ramifications for others. There are many causal reports in VAERS that are ignored. Dr. Gregory Michael was a healthy Florida OB who wanted to protect his patients. He was vaccinated with Pfizer on December 18, 2020. He developed immune thrombocytopenia 3 days later. The
Ms.
report to
Wilner,
VAERS was
thank
received
you.
on December 22nd, and he died on January 3rd.
Please.
While he was sick in the hospital, doctors from around the country came to help, and they all agreed the vaccine caused his condition.
Ms. Wilner,
Thank you for your time.
We'll have to finish. Thank you. Okay, next committee, we have Bailey Stark. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself and then the time is yours.
My name is Bailey Stark. I'm coming to this committee, and thank you, Madam Chair, as both a husband and a father and as a registered pharmacist. At the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, my wife was pregnant. I've been born and raised here in Idaho, and we moved back for schooling just before the pandemic hit. During that time, I remember researching everything I could about the virus, about the vaccines that were in development at that time, looking for some shred of hope. I didn't want my son to come into a world that was shut down and that was dangerous for him. I remember holding my son and wishing that there was something more that I could do to protect him. As a pharmacist, I have seen the vaccine used in a variety of different settings. I have seen it used in the community and to great impact. I've seen people smile as they received it, knowing that they were at least somewhat protected from this deadly virus. I have also seen it used in my own family among my 3 kids, and I can say that they are all wonderful, happy, healthy kids. I have looked at the studies personally and recommended the vaccine to my patients that I have seen, discussing this with them at length at times, and ultimately helping them to make their own decision. I believe that the mRNA vaccine represents a useful tool in preventing infectious disease, and that this would be a step backwards. It would potentially prevent new breakthroughs from being used by Idahoans, and I believe that this would be a mistake on part of the Senate to pass this law. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us today. Okay, committee. Next we have Sean Alex. Please identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
Okay. My name is Sean Alex. Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you for this time. I'm here today to testify in favor of Senate Bill 1036, Doug Cameron Act. I'm a 25-year career firefighter, paramedic, and a veteran. In 2021, after the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine, my fire department and surrounding departments witnessed a 60% increase in cardiac arrest. 2 of the highest alert dispatch tones are structure fires and cardiac arrest. It was unprecedented to hear those tones go off so often. Also, one of my fellow firefighters, after she had taken the COVID-19 vaccine by mandate, she had severe side effects. In 1976, the U.S. government vaccinated 45 million people against the pandemic swine flu. The entire program was canceled after there was reports of just 53 deaths. And yet on July 28, 2021, Pfizer and its partner BioNTech posted publicly their 6-month update on their key COVID vaccine clinical trial, where they reported 15 deaths. However, on November 8, 2021, the FDA released its summary basis for regulatory action where they granted full approval to the Pfizer vaccine, replacing the emergency authorization. The FDA reported stated that Pfizer's reported to them that there were actually 21 deaths in the trial of the vaccine group. 21 deaths, not 15. 21 deaths, and yet instead of shutting down the trial because of the high death rate, like in 1976, the FDA approved it for the masses. Since the vaccine rollout, there has been massive increases in myocarditis, pericarditis, stroke, sudden death in pilots, military members, student athletes, and professional sports. I would ask that the committee would vote in approval of Senate Bill 1036 so gene therapies can be studied and be verified by open and transparent scientific studies for these various issues. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay, next we have Haley Bridgewater. Welcome to committee. Please identify yourself for the record, then the time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee, for letting me speak today. My name is Dr. Haley Bridgewater, and I am here to represent myself against this bill. I have been working in infectious disease research for over a decade. I started my career at the Los Alamos National Laboratory, working in a genome sequencing laboratory. I have since moved here to Boise, completed both my master's and PhD at Boise State University in biomolecular sciences. My current role is researching vaccines. I research vaccines for both humans and dairy cows. And I want to come here today to talk to you about how I use these gene therapy products in my research, and how this bill will affect not only Idahoans and the health of Idahoans, but also our growing research community. Today I want to tell you about how I use these specific terms that are mentioned in this bill in my research. For example, I use plasmids regularly. And you can think of a plasmid as something like a recipe card. It carries the instructions for how to make cookies or proteins. These proteins or cookies come in multiple shapes, sizes, and flavors. We can actually give these recipe cards to bacteria because, let's be honest, they're a better baker than I am. These bacterial bakers can make proteins normally. They normally make all of their own protein cookies, if you will. But when we give them these plasmids or new recipe cards, they're going to make our proteins for us, the ones that we're interested in. An example of a protein cookie that I've recently made is one that glows red. It's a red protein that I can actually visualize with my own eyes to see where my protein is at. Other researchers across Idaho have used these bacterial bakers and these plasmid recipe cards for things like MS or multiple sclerosis research. They use them for irritable bowel syndrome research. Also, they use them to brew better beer. Beyond bacterial bakers, I regularly use ex vivo genetically modified cells in my laboratory. What this means is that we take human or animal cells out of the body and we grow them in a lab. As humans, we are very social beings. We need this to interact. So do cells. I use these cells to help me make vaccines safer. These are the first check in my vaccine research. Before I put it into animals, way before I put it into humans, I want to make sure that our vaccines are safe on a cellular level, so I can grow these cells in our lab. If this bill were to pass, we will not be able to do this vaccine safety check here in Idaho. So I ask, for the health and safety of our community, please say no to this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Thomas Jenks. Welcome to the committee.
Good afternoon.
Time is yours. Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Thomas Jenks. I'm a research fellow at Children's Health Defense, where I spend my time researching the effects of vaccines on pediatric health, long-term outcomes. We're all pretty familiar with VAERS. And the reporting system that the CDC has put together. They also released a smartphone app for the COVID shots, specifically called vSafe. vSafe was a way for people to directly contact the CDC with their adverse reactions. Over 10 million Americans installed that app, and they reported things about missing work, not feeling well, whether they were pregnant, and on and on. It is a voluminous insight into the American response to the COVID shots. Of those 10 million, over 100,000 reported that they were pregnant when they had the shot. Of those, 11,000, or over 10% of them, had adverse events, and 3,700 of them had miscarriages. So the data is out there. These are dangerous products. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, next I have Gordon Wilkerson. Welcome to committee. Thank you for being
Thank you,
here
Madam
today.
Chair. I believe I marked the box wrong when I signed this up. I am actually in favor of this bill.
Okay.
For the record, my name is Gordon Wilkerson. I'm a Washington County Commissioner. I'm here representing myself. As a Washington County Commissioner, I look at governance as common sense. As you've heard from some of the most respected physicians and scientists and injured, gene therapy immunizations at this point have not been tested for long-term safety. I believe that government is not in place to protect you from yourself, but to protect you from others. With that said, as a commissioner of Washington County, I found myself standing between the government and the people all too often. This is one of those times. Highly respected people you've heard from have nothing to gain from their testimony and everything to lose. The pushback from the medical and pharmaceutical industries should pique some interest. Follow the money. If you've not heard, the trust of the American people have for their government is at historic lows and declining. Gene therapy immunization can and is proven to be life-altering, not for the good. Gene therapy vaccine science has been ignored, modified to fit the narrative. I do believe entities involved in this research have a duty to be forthright with their findings and inform the people with science-based truth. I believe when people have honest and truthful information, the decision they make is theirs to live with. In closing, I'm not anti-vax. At this point, I cannot stand quietly as a lesser magistrate. On October 6, 2023, Washington County Commissioners signed a resolution supporting removal of gene therapy immunization from the child immunization schedule. Adams County and Boise counties followed with similar resolutions. I believe firmly and do support removing this experiment from society until government comes clean with all the information.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson.
I'm asking you to stand with us in supporting removal of this experiment from society until science proves it safe and effective.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we have Dr. Ryan Cole. Please identify yourself for the record, and then time is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senators on the committee. I'm Dr. Ryan Cole. I'm a board-certified anatomic and clinical pathologist representing myself. I live in District 19, and I'm grateful to be here. I think we're missing the forest for the trees here. We're talking about COVID and what happened and the shot. But remember, as Shakespeare said, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. A gene therapy by any other name is still a gene therapy. This is a genetic product. This is not a vaccine. It's been mislabeled. It did not stop transmission. It did not stop disease. It did not stop acquisition of disease. It did not stop this disease. There are plenty of papers out there, as have been mentioned already. What we've missed is the product that went out to market was a bait and switch by Pfizer. It was grown in these broths that my colleague talked about and contaminated with a known carcinogenic monkey virus, SV40. 6 countries, independent laboratories, peer-reviewed now, have proven that these are adulterated, contaminated products. Excess DNA has been found in them up to 437 times the FDA allowed amount. Anything that exceeds those regulatory standards is out of bounds. Yet our regulators have failed us. We as Idaho can set an example for the nation that we're not going to put up with an out of trust federal government that keeps ignoring the financial interests that are out and about. We don't do ice pick lobotomies anymore. We don't leach anymore. We don't overuse opioids anymore. We don't use mercury anymore. There's a reason, because those products were dangerous and science was wrong. The science has settled as censorship. Plain and simple, these are dangerous products, not just the COVID. These are synthetic RNAs. And I'll conclude with this. Science and medicine dies when inquiry dies. We can do a lot of things scientifically. Knowledge is great, but knowledge without wisdom is folly, and wisdom comes from delayed gratification. These are dangerous products that need to be removed from the market, and we don't need to allow Idahoans. This is about our children, your children, my children, the future. We don't need Idahoans to be guinea pigs for a synthetic product. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, next we have John Tribble online. I can get him.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, please. The time is yours. Identify yourself for the record, and then the time is yours.
All right. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Dr. John Tribble. I'm a local emergency physician and family physician. I also sit on the board of the Southwest Health District Public Health Board as the physician advisor. Our Public Health Board recently reviewed the evidence, the risks and benefits as it pertains to the mRNA COVID gene therapy, and found our federal health regulatory agencies derelict in their duty to protect the public. We removed the mRNA COVID vaccine completely from our public health clinics based on it being an incompletely studied gene therapy with unacceptable risks. Large pharmaceutical companies and our federal health regulatory agencies are corrupted. They are involved in a massive for-profit scheme run like a cartel. They have absolved these gene therapies of legal liability. They are buying influence and cover from regulators, politicians, news outlets, research hospitals, researchers, and accrediting agencies, all at the expense of the health of our citizens here in Idaho. This bill has nothing to do with government limiting freedom or the freedom to put a dangerous drug in your body, as some have insinuated. This bill is an opportunity for our Idaho citizen representatives to uphold their God-given constitutional duty to protect life. The primary responsibility of government, as articulated by our founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence, is to secure the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Among these, life is paramount. Today, we face a critical decision regarding protecting this fundamental right. The introduction of mRNA gene therapy into medical practice, particularly when pushed by agencies with conflicts of interest, challenges this government's duty to safeguard life. The Constitution in Article 1, Section 8, empowers the government to regulate for the general welfare, which includes ensuring the safety of medical interventions. However, when regulatory bodies are influenced by the industries they oversee, as we have seen historically, with incidents like the thalidomide tragedy, and more recently with the COVID gene therapy, we witness a failure in this constitutional duty. By allowing such a medical intervention with known harms and significant risks, we are not just risking public health, but also abdicating our responsibility to protect our citizens.
Thank you, Mr.
The real
Tribble.
and potential dangers of genetic therapies are well documented, and the government's role should be to act as a guardian against such risks.
Thank you.
Not an enabler. I'll just end with this. The danger of these therapies will continue to be revealed, and today history will be the judge of the actions taken by this Congress.
Thank you
I urge
very
you to
much.
consider supporting this bill. Thank you.
Next, we have,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Madam Chair, we do have that last expert, I guess, online and ready, I've been told. If is that,
We're going to have a hard stop at 5 o'clock. Okay, we've
you.
been in here for 2 hours, almost 2 hours now. And so we need a hard stop at 5 o'clock. Thank you. I'm sorry, Brendan. Thank you. Because I want to get to Mr. Cameron, please. So, Mr. Cameron, would you come to the microphone? Can you pull that? Could you pull that? Will that come down enough for you?
Can you hear me?
Maybe a little closer. Please help you.
Madam Chair, may I try this one right here? May I try this one?
Yes, you may.
Can you hear me?
Please do.
Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. Thank you for being with us today. Please identify yourself for the record, and the time is yours.
My name is Doug Cameron. I was vaccine injured April 2021, the Johnson & Johnson gene therapy COVID vaccine. I received my vaccine at work during work. 10 days later, I was paralyzed from the diaphragm down, and I spent 105 days in hospitals and rehab centers in Idaho and Utah. And I'm willing to show all my medical records and images. Combined medical bills and out-of-pocket expenses have exceeded $2 million, and I'm willing to show all my medical bills and out-of-pocket payments, and it continues to grow. Typical vaccine development timeline generally takes between 5 and 15 years, and sometimes to assess whether vaccine is safe and effective in clinical trials. We have not reached the first 5 years of this worldwide gene therapy vaccine trial. Everybody who got a COVID vaccine is in the trial. The data has not been forthcoming, and I, for one, cannot stand by and watch our young people be vaccinated and tested with gene therapy and their unknown long-term side effects. Known side effects include myocarditis, pericarditis, male and female reproductive issues, paralysis such as mine, and many, many more. The purpose of this bill, S1036, is to put a pause on human gene therapy products for the safety of Idaho citizens. Human gene therapy is still in its infancy. The pause is necessary, and Idaho can be and should be leading the charge. I politely ask you to put this up for a vote and pass this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Carla Cameron, please come to the microphone.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yes,
and
the time's
Senators.
yours. Identify yourself for the record.
My name is Carla Cameron. I'm from Hammett, Idaho, and Doug is my husband of 42 years. And I'm here to share the human side of what has happened to us. I have an email of a packet, I think that went to you also. I'd like to ask everybody in this room a question and a wonder. Do you enjoy your life as you're living it right now? And how many of you have received this gene therapy shot? And of those who did, I'm curious if you're thankful that what happened to Doug didn't happen to you in your life. Countless people have said to Doug and I, thank God that didn't happen. What happened to Doug didn't happen to them. They would not and could not continue living if they had been harmed as Doug was. There have been some dark times since he was vaccine injured. I would have been devastated if Doug had thought to end his life. But truly, how could I blame him? He has been forsaken by the very people who said, "Go ahead and take one for the team. It'll be okay. After all, there is a compensation program that will help you if you're injured." The phrase of taking one for the team, it takes on a whole new meaning when you're the only one left in the field. And that is exactly how these gene therapy injured people feel. Through all this adversity, Doug has not given up and he has persevered. He knows that he was saved from death to help others. He is here today making sure no one is harmed from these gene therapy products and their unnecessary, unknown, and rare illnesses and risks. Do you remember during COVID when every life mattered? Well, that was until the vaccine started injuring people. I'd like to leave with this. Well, you may throw your rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man. But as sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light, as said by Johnny Cash and the Good Book. Please, with your conscience and humility, rethink and reevaluate these gene therapy products going into people and vote for a pause. I know you're not doing that today, but we need to make sure that no one is taking one for the team unnecessarily. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, committee, we do have a meeting tomorrow, and with that, we're adjourned.